Hello, this is Coach Tim Campbell, and I'm your host for the Self-Made as a Myth, Make a Difference Together show, where we are chatting with successful business owners to hear their stories of the journey to building their business. And because we know that achieving success in business is not something that we do on our own, we're taking an opportunity to thank and appreciate those who have helped us along the way. Today, I'm excited to have a fellow business owner from North Carolina with us. My guest balances her technical right brain with a desire to be creative. And she's babbled in writing and acting. So we'll have her tell us a little bit more about that. And in her downtime, she enjoys stretching her culinary skills as well as the cinema. And she's most proud of building a six-figure business, which we're going to learn a little bit more about. So it is my pleasure to welcome Carleen to the show today. Hello, Carleen.
Hi, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you to your audience for even checking in to watch us today.
Awesome. Well, hey, you are very welcome. It is awesome to have you on the show. So let's start by having you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of your personal story, like where you were born and live, and about your family and those
Sure.
hobbies that I just mentioned.
Yeah, so my name is Carleen Lamay, and I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. And if you ask a lot of people where they're from and they say DC, they usually mean the suburbs, but I was born and raised in the city. And like most people, you move out. And now, unfortunately, I can never move back because DC is so expensive. But that's where I'm from. I am now in North Carolina, where I've been for the last 19 years. So my youngest of three children is 21, which means North Carolina is home to him, really. That's all they really know. I am married to my husband. We've been married for 6 years, and he has four adult children of his own. So together we have seven adult children and a grandchild. So that's kind of my personal story.
Oh,
And when
awesome.
I'm not working, as you mentioned, I love to cook. It used to be a dream of mine to go on like Master Chef or the Next Level Chef, but I realized I'm a slow cook. And in those shows, you have to be a fast cook. So I don't
Yeah.
think I could do that. And yeah, you mentioned cinema. I love watching movies and films, and I used to do some acting and some writing. I've acted in a bunch of short films for film competitions, and I was even an extra on a Morgan Freeman film years ago when I was living in DC, was filming. I got the opportunity.
Very cool. Awesome. So what type of writing do you do?
Well, when I was doing writing, right now, I will say business ownership is consuming most of my
Yeah,
time,
right.
but it was definitely fiction, some poetry, and I really enjoy film writing because just of how you could describe the settings of what
Yeah,
you were trying to see. Yeah. So
yeah. Yeah,
so
so
one
now
day I'll
you're
get back there.
so right now your hobby is business ownership.
Yes. All consuming business ownership.
Yes. Well, hey, tell us a funny story that your family likes to, to share about you. And is there one that you'd be willing to, to share with us today?
Yeah, this is a funny one. It is actually fairly recent. My husband, my master bedroom is actually on the first level. So he was in the kitchen and he heard this loud thump come from our bedroom. And of course, he's going to check to see what happens. He comes over, he sees my feet kind of in the door frame where a bathroom is, kind of if you can picture the Wicked Witch of the West, right? From Dorothy. And he peeks over and I'm laying on the floor. And he's like, what happened? I says, well, I was doing pirouettes and I fell. So literally, I was kind of going back to my teenage days, pretending I could do ballet. I had on socks, slipped, fell, and he had the same reaction you did, and he said, "Never a dull day with you." So
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. Well, many people will get a chuckle out of that.
I hope so. My backside didn't, but it is
No,
what it
right?
is.
So, Carleen, tell us how did business come about, and at what point did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
I've always had an interest in owning a business or being involved in business. And kind of one of the earliest memories I have is an uncle of mine and a cousin, they opened a pizza shop in an area back when Domino's would not serve this area. So it's one of these underserved areas, right? And for a summer job, I worked there and I was working like taking orders and occasionally I would make a pizza. But I realized some of the things like, well, why are we running out of cheese or pizza place? And now you have to go to Costco and pay retail instead of getting things wholesale. And it was one of those things where you kind of instinctively realized that business was a thing. And when I went to college, I still wanted to be an actress, but I ended up being a business major instead. So kind of, and so I was a hustler and I did things part-time here and there. And then I started this business under a previous name, part-time, when I have a full-time job.
Mm.
And it started growing so much so that I actually hired a part-time employee while I was working for someone else full-time.
Oh, wow.
And it just kind of went from there.
That is awesome. So tell us a little bit more about the company. What's the name? What do you guys do? How do you help folks?
Yeah, so we are C2 accounting and business support, and our focus is actually more on the bookkeeping side. So our focus is on the back end, the things that small business owners need to do to keep the business running, but they may not always want to do it. So it's
Yes.
just it's kind of a necessary evil. But when people reach out to us, they're usually in some sort of distress. No one's going to call a bookkeeper when things are going well. So either
Right.
they're doing the books themselves and they don't really know what they're doing, a spouse is doing it, so it's causing some sort of like strife in the relationship, or they have an admin person in the office and they're like, here, you're a warm body. We have QuickBooks. The two of you should meet. And then they do it. And so when things kind of get a little stressed out, that's when we get a call. And so our job is to kind of go in and see where the problems are, see how we can fix it, get them healthy. And hopefully they work with us on ongoing. We keep them healthy.
Wonderful. I'm sure you've experienced some very interesting uh, set of books.
Yes, we have. And the names have been, it's taken away to protect what is it, the
Yes.
identity of the guilty or something like that.
Yes. Now, share us a story where someone pushed you or inspired you that you could do it, maybe even when you didn't think that you could, and the impact that that person had on you.
I'm going to have to give credit to my husband, because he was and is my biggest supporter. And when I was doing this part time and I was really becoming a real business, I'm actually paying myself, and it got to the point where I don't know how many long lunches you can take when you have a full-time job, or how many times you can sneak out to make a phone call. And this is before, even though this was still, only 7, 8 years ago, it was before Zoom was really popular.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation and he said, I think you could do this if you could do it full time.
Mm.
And so we crunched the numbers. We got our finances in order as a family so I could leave my job, which I did in December of 2020. No, December 2017. Wow,
Oh,
it's been that long. December 2017. And then here I am. So I will say a little side note for anyone leaving their full-time job to become a full-time business owner. Um, don't continue living like you have a full-time paycheck in those first few
mm.
months, which is a mistake that I made. So it's like, well, wait a second. So yeah.
Right? Yes,
Mhm.
yes. And what's your husband's name?
My husband's name is Greg.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, it's awesome. Having gone through a similar, example of having that support from my spouse, I know how critical that is to be able to feel confident and jumping in with both feet when, when your husband, or in my case, when my wife was supportive
Mhm.
and encouraging of that. So I'm happy to hear that you had that support.
Yeah, I think choosing a good partner in life is just one of the best things you can do because they can really either make your life easier or harder. So choose wisely, people.
So, Carleen, what's your biggest learning as a business owner?
Um, One of the things that has been my business biggest learning was to run my business as a CEO, and
Mm.
not necessarily as an entrepreneur. And that's not to slight entrepreneurship because I'm passionate about entrepreneurship. But as a CEO of the business, you're really looking at things at a high level, right? And you're trying to build a team around you that's because you can't do it all yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that was the biggest learning curve for me was I had to take off like I work for myself hat and put on I am a
Yes.
CEO hat.
Yes. Yes. It actually, that reminds me of something that we coach our clients on. It's the entrepreneurial ladder. So, we all start as
Mm,
employees, then we become self-employed, then we become a manager, we hire employees, then we become what we call a true business owner. And that business owner is working towards, what you're saying, is that CEO mindset of having a business
Hmm.
that can run without us. And there's
Exactly.
really three mindset shifts that we have to make, right? So we
Mm.
all start with an employee mindset, right? Then
Mhm.
we'll go into owner operator mindset, right? And that's a
Yes,
big shift.
that is.
But then we have to go to that CEO mindset where, we're not doing all the day-to-day activities anymore. And that, I find that's a really tough shift for a lot of business owners to make, because you have to let go, right? And trust that
That
you're
is
going to
hard.
be able to do it as well as you. Yeah.
Yeah, that is hard. I have given people advice when they are still in the owner operator mode and before they're hiring that first person to
Mm.
take everything that's in your head and get it on paper,
Yes.
document your processes, because training someone seems overwhelming when you have to physically sit there and do it. But if they
Yes.
have things that they can follow, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, it sure does. Um, and the great thing about that is the person that you're training will let you know of things that is confusing, right? Of what you
Hmm.
wrote down. They're like, I don't understand it. Great. It's an opportunity to make that training document even stronger. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And go back and do it yourself sometimes. You'd be
Mm.
surprised that you can't follow your own
Right?
instructions.
Yeah, exactly. So, Carleen, we know that business success doesn't happen in isolation. So, tell us about one of your biggest business challenges over the years, and maybe a fellow business owner that came alongside you and helped you through it.
I think one of the biggest challenges I had was maybe in the beginning. It was undervaluing myself,
Mm,
undervaluing my services. And I would even say maybe even imposter syndrome a little bit, because it's like,
uh-huh.
as you were saying, you're shifting the mindset from employee to now I own a business, but you don't really feel like am I really a business owner when I've only been doing
Right?
this for a couple of months?
Yeah.
Um, and instead of having a single fellow business owner that helped me through it, I think it was actually my client
Mm,
to help me through it, because they saw the value that I brought to their, not only the service, but the value that I brought to their business and how it was making a change in their lives. And they would give me feedback that, you're like, wow, okay, they're getting it.
yeah.
They're understanding what I'm doing. And when they start referring you to the people in their circle, then you realize, okay, this is legit. I'm actually not an imposter. I
Yes.
can do this.
Yes. Oh, I love that. It that idea of you know not valuing ourselves, right, means then that we will attract, lower value clients, right?
Hmm.
Because that's where we're currently perceiving ourselves. So one of the things my coach helped me with in the beginning was, she kept saying to me, Tim, when you believe you're worth, this much, then you'll start attracting clients who are willing to pay that much, right? And
I agree.
so it's our own mindset. And you mentioned the imposter syndrome, right? We all struggle with that, but taking time to work on our mindset and work on our beliefs, and trust that we can, in fact, deliver the services that we're promising. Then we start to see it happening with people hiring us, and then that, helps accelerate that. But yeah, it's a tough thing in the beginning to,
Hmm.
when we don't have the clients yet, to believe that we're worth. And the big mistake that a lot of folks will make is they'll significantly undervalue their work, right? and
Yes.
and almost give it away for free, and then get stuck in a mentality of, well, I guess I can only ever charge this much because that's what I charge to get these clients. So
Right. I would definitely challenge anyone who's currently in that situation to start raising their rates. And
yes.
they would be surprised. And you'll go, well, why didn't I do this 6 months ago? Why did
Right.
I do this a
Yeah.
year ago?
Yes.
Yeah. If you know, especially you want to be obviously within the market, whatever your service or product is. But if you're definitely on the lower end, it's time to start increasing those rates.
Absolutely. Right. Because there's a perception too. If you're too cheap, then you must be
Mm-hmm.
bad, right? You must not be
Mm-hmm.
providing a good service if you're not charging, the same amount that everyone else is charging.
Exactly. It's like when you go to a website to buy software and they have like the three tiers. People tend to just choose the middle. No one wants to buy the cheapest, but you
Yep.
don't really want to buy the most expensive. So it's
Yes.
exact same thing.
Yes, exactly. And I love that too, because you should always have at least three options, because there are, a smaller subset of people that always just want the most expensive version. Right. So
Mm,
if you don't offer a most expensive version, you're leaving money on the table, because you don't have those three options to offer someone.
I agree. That's actually a really good point.
So Carleen, if I was to ask you, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. Ask you to pick three people in your business owner journey that you're most grateful for them, being there for you and helping you along the way. Who are those three people and how they help you?
So I would say when I think back, one was a networking partner. She had founded a local women's only networking group. Her name is Linda Tello. I will give her a shout out here. And that group of women was so supportive, especially at the very beginning of my business, that it just helped because, when you first start working for yourself, you're alone
Mm-hmm.
typically. And now that we're all working from home, even more so. So having a group of people to kind of network with and not feel so alone in that journey was super helpful in the beginning. Then I had a sales coach about a couple of years ago. And then I was pretty good at sales, even though I thought I would hate sales, but I realized I actually don't look at it as sales anymore. I really look at it as having a conversation with someone. And if we can support you, then great. If not, then that's okay too. And being able to systematize the process in which I was
Mm-hmm.
doing that, those sales calls, that was super helpful. And then third would be someone who's actually currently operating as our fractional COO, and helping me to systematize the operations, the back end, the
Mm-hmm.
HR stuff.
Yes.
Because we have a team of right now, I have 5 employees, and we just actually put an offer in that she accepted today. So we'll have 6 soon.
Oh,
So having,
congratulations.
thank you. So having someone to help, and I will say that was one of the areas which I felt the most weak, like team meetings, we have to have them, but what do we do? How
Uh-huh,
do we do
yeah.
that?
Yeah. Right.
I know this is the thing. And so just having someone who has that kind of one, the bird's eye view, but two, that leadership and some of the operational pieces that I just felt like I wasn't ready to do. And that helps me feel more like a CEO because I have that team behind me.
Yeah, fantastic. I love it. That's one of the things that with that CEO mindset shift is then actually having a leadership, starting to build a leadership team, right? And being able to put a layer in between of people that you can hold accountable to running the day to day and not getting into the day to day. So that's fantastic. Congratulations.
Yes. It's also
That
very scary, but fantastic.
Oh, sure, yes, right.
Yes.
um, the women's group that you got involved in, I love that because you mentioned that that it can be lonely at the top, and right, not when we're an employee, we have a manager who holds us accountable, right? Who we can go to ask questions to and keeps us on track. When we're on our own, we lose all of that accountability and support.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, um, when you think about the impact that those three people had on you or had on the business, can you see a correlation between your business results and the things that they helped you with, or the interactions that you had with those three folks?
Yes, for sure. I would say if I'm speaking specifically about those 3 people, the women's group helped me to become a better networker in the beginning. Because when you're working full time, usually, unless you're in sales, your job doesn't really involve networking. So
Yeah,
that was a skill I had to develop.
yeah.
So they were very helpful and still are with that. With the sales coach, it definitely increased my sales. So I made more money
Yeah.
because I was able to have a process and remove the emotion from it. I
Mhm.
remember in the beginning, if someone said no, it felt almost soul crushing. Like, well, why don't you want to work with me? But
Yeah.
now it's like, it's not the right time. It's not the right fit. I've had people come back after saying no. So you
Hmm.
don't, now there's no emotion involved. And then with the COO, I feel more empowered as a CEO. And again, I also feel like we've increased our revenue because she's helping me to create stretch goals and like, okay, yeah, I know you can hit here. And me in my mind, I'm like, wow, that seems like a lot, but then we're doing it. We're hitting those milestones. So having someone to kind of light a fire under you has been nice, holding you accountable.
Yeah, wonderful. So shifting gears a little bit here, as you think about the next 3 to 5 years, Arlene, what are the biggest challenges that you see that you guys are going to face in achieving your goals, and who are the types of people that you're going to need to help you work through those challenges?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge I can think of off the top of my head is going to be balancing, continuing to deliver amazing services to our clients with the explosive growth that we've experienced
Mm,
over the last year and a half. So while, we are growing like crazy and I love it, but we also want to make sure that because our clients are used to us delivering a really good service and being almost over delivering, and we don't want to lose that. So that's
yeah.
going to be hard. And so for that would be building the right team, putting the HR structures in place so that we can get them, train them correctly so that they can do their job. So I don't feel like I have to micromanage everyone. That's going to be for me, I think, the biggest challenge.
Mhm. That is a very common challenge, especially with businesses that are scaling, that are growing, have seeing rapid growth. And I use the analogy of building a high rise, right? So if
Hmm,
there's not a strong footings and solid foundation in place and you go to scale the building, it's going to fall over, right? So same with a
exactly.
growing business. If we don't have a strong foundation, right, a solid core and the fundamentals of the business in place, and we see that hyper growth, it starts to get wobbly and starts to have a little bit of chaos. So, the team that you mentioned, the systems that you mentioned,
Hmm.
right? Having processes and procedures in place, those are
Mm.
all things that are critical to allowing the business to scale, well and scale comfortably as opposed to scaling chaotically. So
Are, are there any particular processes that you would recommend that a small business has in place as they're going through that scale
yeah,
phase?
there's a couple that we recommend as a foundation. So first of all, and you mentioned this one already, is we call it destination mastery. So the idea is having a very clear picture of, what does this business look like when it's done? You
Hmm.
know, what year is it done? What's the revenue, profit,
Mm.
org chart, so that there's clarity on what are we working towards. Now, done can be different things. Done can be, I'm passing it down to the next generation. Done can be I'm selling it. Done can be I'm retiring. And then you work backwards and say, okay, what does that look like in 3 years from now, and in 1 year from now, and this quarter, and this month, and what are the
Right.
the things I should be working on this week? Time mastery is another area where we want to make sure that we're introducing tools to help everybody be as efficient and effective as possible, right?
Hmm.
So that they're not wasting their time and things like that. And then the third is financial mastery. So making sure we've got a very strong, and you'll appreciate this because this is what you
Of
guys do,
course.
right? Making sure we know our numbers and that we've got a
Hmm.
solid understanding of our books and that they're being reconciled monthly, and right, we're making good solid business decisions based on knowing our numbers. I love the show The Profit. Marcus says, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. I love that
Exactly.
quote.
Exactly. You can't make good decisions with bad information.
Yeah. So once you have that foundation, then you focus on, your marketing and sales, and having clear processes and procedures there. Then systematizing the business, make sure that all the different processes and procedures in the business are documented, like you were saying earlier. Then making sure you've got a good solid team, like the right people on the bus, sitting in the right seat on the bus. So it's all of those things is what allows businesses to continue to grow and to continue to scale. But if you
Hmm.
don't have that mastery foundation level, the rest of the things don't matter because the foundation's not solid and is wobbly, right?
That's actually great advice. Yeah. I love how there's a very, it's a process to building processes, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the great thing is that, there are enough great companies out there that have perfected these things so
Hmm.
that as small business owners, right, there's already a roadmap, there's already a process and a methodology. Now, we don't have the time to necessarily go out and learn all that stuff because we're running businesses. So,
Hmm.
there's books and or coaches or different structures out there that can help, speed up the learning curve for
Right.
business owners. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Why reinvent the wheel?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Carleen, last question here. Jim Rohn, an awesome business guru, written a lot of awesome books. One of his quotes is that we become the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So when you
Mm.
think about that quote, what advice would you have for business owners who are trying to do it on their own, who aren't reaching out to others and getting the support like you did? what would you suggest to them?
Don't don't try to do it on your own. um, because it is not only is it impossible, but it's stressful. Like
Mm,
physically, emotionally, and mentally, why put yourself through that?
yeah.
So it's really imperative to build a team around you. And I think a lot of times people think that I have to go hire a full-time bookkeeper, I have to hire a full-time attorney, but you don't necessarily have to do that. I mean, most of us now offer outsourcing fractional services. Like you heard me mention, I have a fractional COO. She doesn't work with me full-time. She has other clients. I could never afford to hire her full-time, but I still take advantage of her services. So it's the exact same thing that people need to make sure you have. I say not only obviously a good bookkeeper, a good tax accountant, financial advisor, business coach. You want to have insurance agents, all these people that can help support you to get where you want to go. And you mentioned we were talking a second ago about where having that looking at the end where you want to, how did you call it, retire the business, how the business is going to end, and knowing that and having the right people will help you get there a lot faster.
Yeah. You also mentioned earlier the power of being part of a networking group, right? In terms of
Hmm.
the impact.
Yes.
So what I found, I'd love to hear your perspective on this. What I found is that most, successful small business owners are more than willing to talk with brand new business owners, right, about their journey. And have you found that as well to be true?
Yes, yes, yes. As long as you're not trying to sell them, people would love to share their information with you. Because generally, when you are an entrepreneur, when you're a business owner, it's because you're passionate about the concept and
Yeah.
you really do want to see other businesses succeed. So they will
and he,
happily
and
share.
and we know this, right? Our favorite thing, right? Everybody's favorite thing is themselves. So if somebody reaches out and says, "Hey, I'd love to hear your story and your
Hmm.
learnings as a business owner," 9 times out of 10, people are going to say, "Yeah, I'd
Exactly.
love to talk about me." Yes, let's set up a coffee meeting.
Yes, they will, and they will talk. And if you ask the right questions, they will keep talking. So
And I love also your advice is don't try to sell them, right? You need to be going into that meeting of what can I learn from this successful business owner?
exactly.
What advice and tips? Don't try to pitch them. The pitching opportunity may come later after you've
Okay.
built
Mhm.
some rapport, but don't enter the conversation that way.
Right. The one thing I've learned the most about networking is I go into any networking meeting literally to build a relationship. Sometimes it makes me happen. I think of someone that I can refer to that person or vice versa, but you never walk into those that I'm going to sell this person because then it becomes icky. And the chances of you getting the sale is slim to none anyway. So just really focus on getting to know them and letting them talk about themselves.
Yes. I'm part of BNI, Business Networking
Hmm.
International, and their mantra is givers gain, right? So the more
Yes.
we give to others, the more value, the introductions, like you said, if we can
Hmm.
buy, actually use their services, there becomes this reciprocation effect that happens, right? Of the more they get from us, then there's almost this guilt feeling of I got to give something back, right? So
Exactly. I love the BNI mantra of giver's gain because it does make sense.
So, Carleen, it sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people that have helped you along the journey. If they were all here on the show today, what would you want to say to them?
Thank you. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for supporting me because there are days where I have said, why am I doing this?
Mm.
Would it not be easier to just go back and get a job? But my husband likes to tell me, Greg likes to tell me that at this point I'm unemployable. I have been doing this way too long on my own to go back to working from someone else. So, and it's going to happen. You will have those days, and so just making sure that you thank those people for putting up with you when you have those days where you want to quit.
It's interesting that you mentioned, some days it would just be easier to go back to be an employee. Well, we actually teach that concept because
Hmm,
it is easier to be an employee. The only reason that anyone should ever become self-employed is if their goal is to build a business that can run without them.
it's yes.
Because, right, that's where the true value comes, right? The freedom, the flexibility, the wealth that we all went into business for in the first
Hmm.
place. If we don't have a business that can run without us, then then we get stuck into that being an employee, right? And the all that comes with the day-to-day operations, while also trying to be the business owner and the strategic thinker and juggling all that. So
Right.
it's always easier to be an employee. Now,
Yeah.
you may not be able to be an employee, like you said, right? You've been an owner too long. So the goal should always be, all right, then let's scale the business, get the right people and processes in place, and be a true business owner that has a business that can run without us.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
Here's the reality for everyone who's listening, right? If we don't have a business that can run without us, and God forbid something happens to us. So growing up, my dad was a mechanic, and he hurt his shoulder and had to have surgery, and the surgery didn't work, so he couldn't go back to his trade. So, if something like that happens to us and we can't work for 3 months, right? If the business can't run without us, our livelihood's screwed.
Exactly.
And
Which
so
is a very scary thought.
yes, right. And so I love all of the things that you're doing, right, to move you more into that CEO role and that CEO mentality and getting the right people in place. So congratulations. That is
Thank
so
you.
exciting.
I appreciate that. It's hard work, but it is so rewarding to be able to, take a vacation and know that the money doesn't stop because you're not working.
Yes, right. What a milestone too. When were you able to take your first, true time away without having to get pulled back in?
Um, let's see. I actually was in Paris in May, and I really
For
did not
you.
work. Yeah, so I occasionally you check emails because of the time difference. I could do
Sure.
it in the
Yeah,
evening
yeah,
there,
yeah, yeah.
but still, the team handled things, which was great.
Wonderful. That is fantastic. Well, Carleen, it has been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank
You
you
as
so much
well.
for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And again, thank you to your audience for hanging out with us today.
To everyone who tuned in, thanks for listening to the Self Made as a Myth show with your host, Coach Tim Campsell. Be sure to help us spread the movement by liking the show and posting about it on your social media. And to join us, go to bemadtogether.com. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Make sure to pay it forward, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.